All right. No Peace Worlds, Kimon Freeman, broadcasting live on the radical side of Martin King Avenue, here in the Elevator Nation's capital, Anacostia, Foothill, City Hill, the line of Anacostia, Frederick Douglass, who famously said that it's better to educate children than to fix broken men. And we're here to address there's a disparity in the distribution of bookstores in the nation's capital that has actually higher literacy rate than the national average, whereas Easter River has double that of the national average, and there's clear correlation between violence, crime, and literacy. And joining me today are several owners or managers of bookstores and also a long-time book vendor who has made it their business to support not only the commerce of bookstores, but also the promotion of a literate community. Joining me here today in front of our live studio audience, I'm so honored to have each and every one of them. Starting with John Purvis. He's the Director of Marketing and Publicity at Politics and Prose Bookstore. Before coming to DC, he worked as a book publisher in London. Please give John a round of applause. And also Karen Coca, since her childhood, growing up in La Paz, Bolivia, has been an avid reader, and this passion for books and the role reading and writing plays in creating a more just society led her to open a bookstore with her man, Pablo Sierra. Her goal is to provide social and economic value to the community and individuals through affordable books, community events, and programs. Her store is Walls of Books. Please give Karen a round of applause. Angela Maria Spring is a poet and founder of Duende District, a bookstore by and for people of color, which all are welcome. The daughter and granddaughter of Central and Latin American immigrants, Spring has worked as a buyer or manager at independent bookstores in New Mexico, New York City, and DC. And since 2005, she is a founding member of the American Bookseller Association Diversity Task Force. Please give Ms. Angela a round. All right, and Derek Young is the co-founder partner of Mahogany Books, along with his wife, Ramunda Young. Mahogany is an online bookstore that sells books written for, by, or about people of the African diaspora. Please give Derek a round of applause. And for 21 years, this man has been a long-stay bookstore vendor, stationed outside of GW's metro station. Rain, shine, sleet, snow, or police. He has sold thousands of books over that 21 run that he did. He was hundreds of thousands.
Yes, sir.
He was affectionately known around this city as the Bookman.
Yes, sir.
Carvelis Muhammad. Give him a round of applause. And rounding this out is Paul Rupert. He is the owner of Upshur Street Books and coined the phrase, "Every neighborhood deserves a bookstore," which is now the motto of the Shawnee's Milton Community Bookstore. And we really want to thank him because he was here in the beginning when we first birthed this idea. So please give Paul a round of applause. Now, again, Kimon Freeman, we're here with the backdrop of launching Shawnee's Milton Community Bookstore. And I felt that in order for us to embark upon an endeavor such as this, we should go to the people that has been doing it. We should have a discussion with people who are experienced, because this is not about competition, it's about collaboration. We feel as though that big box stores are the problem, whereas independent stores, independent business is some of the solution. So I want to start just an open discussion on what made you go into business as a bookstore owner. What was it that pushed you over the edge to do this? And Paul, I just want to share a little personal information. Paul met his wife in a bookstore. Okay. So that needs to say that there is a space for community relationships to spawn in yes, bookstores. Wow. And that the whole notion, because this is some of the stuff I've been pushed back on. Well, bookstores are dying. It's an outdated business model. And no one's reading books anymore. And I was like, that's insane. Most of the people I see on the train reading are not reading Kindle. You know, most of the people are still reading books. What are you talking about? So that's some of the pushback I've gotten. Tell me what has gotten you over the hump to go in business selling books. And I'm going to start here with Ms. Karen.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having us. This is a great honor. And so Walls of Books, the bookstore that we represent up in Parkview area, is really the idea of my boyfriend Pablo Sierra. both of us are avid readers, and he always had the dream of having his own business. And so he paired reading and being his own boss with having his own bookstore. And so we've been around 1.5 years now, and we've learned a lot, more than we ever knew coming into this business. And we recognize how important it is for the community. Everyone comes in and they're so grateful that there's a bookstore in the neighborhood, and they're getting to know us and the different array of books that we have. And so it's been a huge learning experience for us.
In whatever order you care.
So we started Upshur Street Books about 3 years ago, and we really wanted to have a bookstore in the Petworth neighborhood because we thought that there was a need there for a place where people could have cultural conversations and really centered around the written word. And so that's why we opened Upshur Street Books on Upshur Street.
So Dwindley District is actually my baby bookstore. I just left my job. I actually used to be the floor manager at Politics and Prose, and I've been there since 2010. Before that, I was in New York City at McNally Jackson's, the Children's Buyer, and I'm originally from New Mexico, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I've worked in both corporate and independent bookstores for the past 17 years. And it's one of those things that you kind of stumble into, especially when you're a writer. But the thing that really concerns me is, so I am Hispanic, and I come from a majority brown state, which is one of the only states like that in the nation, but we still don't have Hispanics or Native Americans who own bookstores in New Mexico. And that is a problem. And I certainly want to go back to New Mexico at some point and be able to address it as well. And Dwindley District right now is a mobile bookstore. But I've lived in the district for a long time, and I really felt like I haven't gotten to know any of it until the past few months. And I am tired of spending years working in bookstores that is dominated by white people, which, well-meaning white people, but privileged. I've worked with too few people of color over the years, and the ones I have are extremely talented, and we just can't seem to advance into decision-making positions or managerial positions or senior managerial positions. And there's certainly far too few people of color who actually own bookstores. The amount of people of color that own bookstores in this country, it's just not even, when I think about it, I just get so sad and angry at the same time. But instead of getting sad and angry, I decided that we're going to create a bookstore where we celebrate who we are as people of color. That we deserve this. Every single one of us as a person of color deserves to have a bookstore that represents us, that is beautiful, that is amazing, that is a wonderful experience, that is created and curated by us. But then when we open the doors to everybody to say, look what we make. This is awesome. You want to be a part of this. And so that's what I'm doing with Dwindley District.
Okay, well, that's an awesome story. Following that. Well, my reason is much more personal, and I've experienced it. I'm from DC, grew up in PG County, went to Suitland High School, alumnus of Bowie State University. And during that time, I realized, especially in DC, in a community where it's majority black, high earning incomes there, but yet inside of the Beltway, there's still a lot of people struggling. And I've noticed that as I was growing up, I never really learned about myself. As much as I love my high school, they never really taught me about myself until my last year at an elective to take one course about African American history. And that was after, 12 years of learning. Went to Bowie State University and still wasn't really offered the opportunity as of course I was a business major, but wasn't offered the opportunity. It wasn't until I started working at Caribou Bookstore, I think it was my sophomore, junior year of college, that when I walked into the store and noticed that this one bookstore housed nothing but books that talked about issues that dealt with me and my history, the thought processes, the issues that we're dealing with now, or even in a fiction sense, we're dealing with protagonists and antagonists or plot lines that focus around me, that I realize there's a different way of viewing myself, my culture, my history. And at that point, as I started working there and started reading all these different books, it really gave me a chance to learn about myself and really define who I am as a person. Now I know who Derek Young is, and I know it in the context of history. So no one can take that away from me. No one can ever take that away from me. And that experience really put me in a place where, who I am as a man, who I am as a father, as a son, as a husband, that really defines me. And I want to be able to give back that same type of opportunity for other people. Because once you really once you're really rooted in who you are as a person, no one can steal that away from you. They can do whatever they want, but it's that ability to really kind of fortify yourself in knowledge that is just grounded and rooted in truth, that you know, that helps you become a successful person to reach your potential. So that's why we started Mahogany Books, and that's our everyday mission, to be able to go out and do that work.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I am not the owner of Politics and Prose. I'm not brave enough to own a bookstore.
A manager.
I'm the Director of Marketing and Publicity there. I think just to talk about, first of all, Kamone, thank you for bringing us all together. I think that there is a kind of story of sort of, in some ways, there are a lot of articles celebrating the growth of independent bookstores across DC, but you know, as you pointed out, that story isn't complete. You know, there is this big swathe of the city which doesn't get factored into that conversation until, you know, you brought us together for this event. And so, you know, thank you for doing that. Just to talk about Politics and Prose, we were founded in 1984 by two women, Carla Cohen and Barbara Mead, who, you know, I think at their core really wanted to develop a bookstore that would serve their community, sort of a small neighborhood bookstore. And since 1984, it's really just been a story of kind of steady growth by, I maintain, just doing what we've always done, which is by really providing for the community and people who live there, and for bringing in booksellers who are passionate about what they do, who sort of do go above and beyond for customers, for people who come in and help people to discover a book they'll love, and sort of maybe sort of help them come across something unexpected. And you know, since that time, we've done more and more. You know, with our programming, with our events, and that's something that Politics and Prose is known for. We're running something like 500 a year now, and we're now looking to expand to Union Market. So, you know, in many ways, we're really excited to see kind of this incredible potential in DC, but also, you know, at the same time, try to be aware that it's a story that needs to happen across this city. And hopefully, we want to, you know, do our part and sort of be part of the solution to that.
Yes, sir. My name is Brother Abdullah Muhammad. I am a member of the Nation of Islam under the leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I started selling books probably about 25, 27 years ago. I employed probably over 40 black youth in my time or span selling books. And I originally started selling books. I was doing nails. I had just got my license doing nails and feet, the pretty nails y'all like? Doing the designs and all of that. Yes, sir.
That's a hell of a
I was doing that at a shop. And the brothers would come in on 8th Street, was right there, 4th and H. The sister had a shop right there. And I had gotten so good at doing feet, doing the sister's feet, she assigned me to only doing pedicures. I got real good at doing pedicures and doing the designs on feet. But the brothers would come in with stolen books. Let me keep it real. They would come in with stolen books at night, and we'd have maybe 20, 30 sisters in there getting their nails and their feet done. And they would buy the books. And I'm watching this, brother. I'm like, wow. These brothers come in here and sell out. So I told the brothers, when they come to the store, don't come in the store no more. Call me. I'll buy all the books. So I started selling the books to the sisters. They would bring me 50, 60 books. I'm just keeping it real. That's how I started. So I accumulated so many books, brother. I took them down on Potomac Avenue one day at the subway station. And I made about $680 in about 4 hours. And I said, good God Almighty, no more fees. Went back the next day, brother. Went back the next day and made about $500 with 2 tables. Just 2 tables, little tables. And brother, it was on and popping, as the youngster said. Henceforth, we sold books for 21 years, black man. Yes, sir. That's how I started. Oh, here you go.
Thank you, Carl. I didn't even know that.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm gonna keep it real.
Okay. One of my heroes is Abby Hoffman, and the title of his book was "Steal This Book." So I'm sure he would be happy to hear your story.
Yes, sir.
If he was with us today. Thank you for telling a personal story.
Yes, sir.
And this is React Radio, so let me start by telling my personal story. I didn't have an appreciation for a culture of literacy growing up. I will admit that my parents did have Ebony encyclopedia collection. I read every single one of those books cover to cover. The first time I read a poem, it was by Gwendolyn Brooks. I was probably about 9 years old, and it was in one of those encyclopedias. So I did have a foundation, a reference point. But growing up, I didn't walk around with books. You know, you just go to school. You thought that school was all the all be all. And in a culture of standardized testing is not for a great many of us. So I was 19 years old. I was a scab employee. For those who don't know, scab employees when that crosses the picket line when there's a labor dispute. And I was working for what was then CNP Telephone, later became Bell Atlantic, now it's known as Verizon, which is a monopoly and a horrible company. You should change your service if you're with Verizon. I was there, and because it was a labor dispute, they didn't want you crossing the picket line. So I saw the power dynamic shift between management and employee. So even if I came in 10 minutes late, oh, I'm sorry I'm late. Oh, don't worry about Mr. Freeman, glad you could make it. You know, don't go to the desk yet. Go sit down, get something to eat, and come back. They have catered food. They have big screen TVs, unlimited hours. You know, so I'm having breakfast, lunch, and dinner here. And so I'm sitting there on one of my mini lunch breaks, and the news comes on, and it says something to the effect, controversial civil rights leader Huey P. Newton was killed today. And our older sister was sitting there, and she started crying. And I was like, wow, did you know him? Was it a friend of yours? No, I didn't know him. I'm like, you didn't know him? You crying? I'm like, who is Huey P. Newton?
Wow.
And this is 1989. Public Enemy Fight Power.
Yes, sir.
I got on an African medallion on. I'm down. She looked at me. She grabbed my medallion, snatched it off my neck, threw it on the ground, stomped it out, and said, "You don't know who Huey P. Newton is, and you're wearing this?
Yes, sir.
How dare you?
Absolutely.
You don't know spit. You need to go to school. You need to read a book. You need to do something, because you don't know spit." And stormed out. Wow. And this was not a private conversation. It was a big screen TV with a room full of food. Plenty of people there. And it was the most embarrassing moment I had in my adult life. And that dawned on me, you know what? I don't read on my own. I have never read a book because I wanted to in my, adult life. Like, why I don't know who he is. And from that moment on was the first time I ever ventured into a bookstore. No one took me to a bookstore. I went on a bookstore. I mean, we got some young people in the audience. I got to ask you ahead. How many of you, by show of hands, raise your hand and please be honest with you. Because I'm telling you my stories, they telling theirs. Please tell yours. If you have never been in a bookstore, raise your hand. I'm surprised, but thank you for your honesty. We only have one hand. I'm shocked to see it was only one. I'm encouraged by that. But I was 19 years old before I walked into a bookstore. I think that was criminal.
Absolutely.
I've since met people who had degrees in history who never, not only not read people's history of the United States, hadn't even heard who Howard Zinn is. That's how do you have a degree in history, in American history, and don't know Howard Zinn? I could teach a history lesson in America, off just that one book.
Or Noam Chomsky.
So I just want to pass. What was your personal story in terms of relationship with reading? That what got me as a reader. And the book that transformed my life, if y'all would share, the book that transformed me, the first book I read that transformed me was the autobiography of Malcolm X, because, and that book sits in my window on display right now, because it showed the arc of a person. They went from this to that. And it wasn't a simple arc. It did like he just arrived and he turned 180 degrees. Once he got there, he said that wasn't enough development either. He kept going. He kept transforming. He kept evolving. And that made me know that it's okay to change. This is how I felt at this stage. This is what I thought at this stage. And it's okay if I grow and develop beyond that. That it gave me permission to continue to grow. It gave me permission to know no matter where you start from, does not necessarily have to be your ending point. And that's the book that got me going. So if you'd like to share yours, I would appreciate it.
Well, I can't think of one singular book that impacted my life so deeply, but one of my favorite books, and the reason I think it is one of my favorite books is Isabel Allende's story about her daughter and her family, and it's called Paula. As an immigrant to this country, I needed to find books that I could relate to, and strong family is something that is an extreme value and that I grew up with, and so I wanted to connect with that strength in a book, and I found that in that. So it validated the feelings I had of just an immense bond with family and something that I could relate to. That's probably like the most impactful book for me.
Many books actually have kind of changed the way I've thought about life, but one that I can point out is Francis Fitzgerald's Fire in the Lake, and this is a book about Vietnam, about the Vietnam War, and it really looked at a multitude of kind of angles of the war, and it wasn't just a focus on kind of an American approach and American history. It was really looking at it from the perspective of the Vietnamese, North Vietnamese, South Vietnamese, and that was really eye-opening to me because it said it's important to consider a wide range of kind of analysis and viewpoints when you're looking at history.
This is actually kind of easy for me because the book that set me on the road to Duende District was Daisy Hernandez's A Cup of Water Under My Bed. My own background is I do come from a life of privilege. You know, my mother is a psychologist, and they came from Panama and they didn't have any money. They were in Queens, and my Puerto Rican side of the family is in Brooklyn. And my grandfather founded the first Spanish language radio station in New York City, and he was a poet too.
And his name was?
Oh my God.
Oh,
I'm forgetting my grandfather's name.
Oh, they won't put you on
My
the spot.
Poppy. His name is Poppy.
Okay, this is Poppy. Shout out to Poppy.
And like in my story, because I'm a little emotional. It always makes me emotional because here's the thing, I'm white passing. I'm a white passing brown person, and that is hard. I'm also a Latina that's not fluent in Spanish, which is another difficult thing, especially because my family is in Panama and Puerto Rico, and I can't speak to them. I come from a family where, you know, my father's a doctor, my mother is a psychologist, and my mother taught me to, because it's the safest place to be, to pass in the white spaces. And that's what Daisy's book really helped unravel inside of me. And it was an existential crisis. And it took me going back to Puerto Rico for the first time since my grandfather's funeral, and just being a mess, you know, being a general mess for a really long time. But I mean, you have to think like, my mother almost didn't get her PhD because some white professor thought that she didn't deserve it because she was brown.
Wow.
These are the things that we all face. And reading is the place that we find our power. And a bookstore is about access. And to have an entire industry that is run by mostly white people cuts that access off to us. And I am lucky, and I had that privilege to grow up in bookstores. But so many of us don't. And if I do nothing else in my life as a bookseller, it is to try to open up that access as much as possible. Not just for bookstores, but for voices of color that are being published. Like, I kind of had that moment where I'm like, I'm done. It was like that Angela Davis quote about like, if you can't, like, I'm tired of accepting the things I can't change. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm like, I'm gonna change the things I can accept. And I cannot accept that we live in this world that denies us, people of color, whatever shade we are, that a bookstore, and that for us to own bookstores. And Daisy's book is such a powerful, it's her own story about her family is from Colombia and Cuba, and her coming here, and how she basically, we are colonized. Like, we are colonized. We are separated from our language. We are separated from our family. And she writes about it in such a beautiful, lyrical way, and it was so powerful. And that's like, she has blended. Like, and I remember I went home to read the book. She was doing an event at Politics and Prose, and I was hosting her, and I was just meant to read like a couple chapters, and I couldn't stop reading it, and I was sobbing at the end, and I called my mother right away, and I said, Mama, I understand everything now.
Wow.
And that is the power of a book too. Even though I have read probably like thousands of books at this time. I've been a bookseller for years and years, and I've been reading since I was a kid, but one book can change you forever. And that is what we can give to people. That's why it's so powerful for us to do this.
Thank you.
Wow. Again, following.
I'm so glad I got you in the middle, you know.
So I'm gonna share 2 books. My mother is an avid reader, and growing up, she took it upon herself to always introduce books to us. Now, as a reluctant reader at a young age, I didn't necessarily finish all those books. So, I mean, she was handing me Invisible Man, Black Boy, I mean, every classic book, Malcolm X, everything that you could think that a parent should pass on to her child, she was giving me. Now, I was a little hard-headed, so I didn't necessarily finish reading the book, right? But I remember there was one book I found on her shelf one day, and at the time I was in my first year in college. It was a book, local author by the name of N. Xavier Arnold. It was a fiction book called The Genocide Files. I picked this book up, self-published book, and I think I read the book in like 2 or 3 days. And it just like sparked this whole different kind of feeling about literature for me. So that was the first book that really kind of opened my eyes to the passion and love for books. But the book that really, that I have, you know, my top 5 books that I believe everyone should read, my all-time favorites. But I think at the top of that list is actually Huey P. Newton, Revolutionary Suicide. And that book for me is really kind of, especially the first part of it, the manifesto, when he talks about what revolutionary suicide is, it really kind of talks about sacrifice. And again, what are you willing to lay on the line to advance, you know, yourself, your family, your community? You know, it's okay for us, it's easy to come into this world and be selfish and just kind of focus on what I can get. But, you know, one day we're all going to pass. And when that day comes, what are you leaving behind at that time? And I think that book really kind of helped put it in focus. And what I think was really, maybe what played a part of it is during that time was at the time of my life where Tupac had died. And to be able to see someone that I admired in hip hop, who was also a poet, pass, and to recognize how his words continue to live on, and how my generation just, you know, we walked around wanting to be Little Pop, and we knew everything that he said. And to me, it was the ability to see what a real legacy is through words. And then to be able to read that book, Revolutionary Suicide, and for him to put it into context, what it means to actually put your life on the line for positive change, right? That really kind of helped to put me on the path now today where my actions, my decisions need to be about how am I leaving a legacy, how am I bettering my community, for myself, my family, and then the larger community. So I recommend that book for anyone to read. That's definitely one of my favorite books.
Again, following on now. I'm really glad, first of all, to have had a bit of time to think about this, so thank you. I'm glad not to be on the spot. I've kind of want to give my most honest answer, and it's not actually really so much the book itself as the circumstances under which I got the book. Again, you can probably tell from the accent, I grew up in a life of privilege. You know, came from a family that loved to read, that, you know, was pushing books into my hands really as early as I could walk. And, you know, that gave me, that set me up to love reading, you know, through my teens. But I think up until I was maybe 15 or 16, I'd always read a book because it was a great story. It was just a world I could dive into, and that's what I was there for, and, you know, that's how it was in my life. I went to a boarding school, which was sort of essentially a British military boarding school, so it wasn't a particularly kind place, and it wasn't a particularly academic place, so, you know, it wasn't particularly it wasn't good to be seen to be reading, and I was the nerdy kid in a book, and still am. But I had a teacher, an English teacher. He was in his mid-20s. He kind of kept it. I mean, he was gay, and unfortunately, in that school at that time, it was pretty clear that he wasn't welcome there. And unfortunately he was really only there for I think 2 or 3 years, but he's the best teacher I ever had. And outside of English literature classes, he was really the first person to give me books and say, hey, take this, read it, tell me what you think, beyond just, you know, the work we have at school, because he wanted to share something, because he was really passionate. And the first books he actually gave me was his favourite authors. Now, you know, my favourite author is Kazuo Ishiguro, who is a Japanese-British writer. He has this wonderful kind of almost melancholy, meditative quality, and you know, The Unconsoled, The Remains of the Day, and later on Never Let Me Go are among my favourite books, and I think they're still among my favourite books because that was, I can pin down that as the moment when I said, I don't want to just read books because I enjoy it, but I actually want to be part of this world, and that then took me to English literature and then publishing, and now politics and prose and book selling. All through my life I've surrounded myself with books, and I think I can pin it to that one man giving me that first book and say, give me this and tell me what you think. So that's a personal truth, and I'm not sure there's a wider message, but for me that's why I'm here today.
Thank you for sharing.
Yes, sir. My favorite book, the best book I ever read in my life is Message to the Black Man by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The book that transformed that man you got on the wall, I mean in that window right there, Muhammad Ali. The book that transformed Malcolm X. The book that transformed the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. The book that transformed Huey P. Newton and the rest of that group that started the 10-point program. I would have to say that book transformed my life as a black man in America.
And the book that made me stop eating pork.
Yes, sir. And you know, I'm looking outside, and we used to live right down the street when this was Nicholas Avenue back in '65. And this was an old black neighborhood, and you know, just the statistics are running in my mind from the council members downtown that it's projected, my brother, in the next 10 years, 1.6 million people moving into Washington, D.C. Who are they? Who are they? Who are they? It's not going to be you, or you, or you, or you. And D.C. was 85% black at one time, brother. It's now 43% black. And every 3 months it's going down 3 to 4%. You know what I mean? This is by design, man. Absolute design. By a diabolical, wicked system. And you young people, another one that changed my life, I could go on and on, brother, was Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's book, The ISIS Paper. I met this sister over 35 years ago. Beautiful sister, the first black psychiatrist in St. Elizabeth. Y'all need to Google her. The first black psychiatrist, and if I'm not mistaken, 1957. And she saw how Caucasian people were treating young black males and women coming into St. Elizabeth. And she wondered, why are you treating these children like this? So she began to search and research Caucasian people. She ran into Neely Fuller, who taught her about systems. And these are the systems. I'm going to name them to you all. Very good book to read, sister. This would make my daughter.
How many systems?
Huh? 9, brother. 9. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. These are all people's activities on the planet as we live and breathe right now. Somebody's doing one of these activities as we live and breathe. These are systems that this beast has created to control the whole world. And you wonder why black men are getting murdered? The system is working the way it's supposed to work. You wonder why young black women are getting murdered? The system is working the way it's supposed to work. To kill you. Through one of these paradigms right here. Through one of these paradigms. You can take it and let it alone before your very eyes right now. They're murdering black people in America. Outright. And they want you to accept this as the norm. That racist whatever down there, 45. You don't even want to call him your president, do you? I know it, sister. I'm gonna keep it real with you. He hates your very essence. You got a black uniform on, he hates it. Him and his whole staff. Let me stop, man. I apologize if I insulted anybody, but I don't know no other way but to keep it real. Thank you, brother.
All right, I'm not the only angry black man in therapy. We gonna make a move. And he brought up one of my heroes, Dr. Frances Cress Wilson.
Yes, sir.
Cress Wilson taught me. She would say at the beginning of all her lectures, and if y'all would indulge me, this is what Dr. Wilson would say. Repeat after me. Reading is more important than watching television. And she would ask us to do it again, so please indulge me. Reading is more important than watching television. Okay. Having said that, we're at the bottom of the hour. We have to turn this over to Austin for questions. We're hopefully going to ask some very good questions, so be on point as we get prepared to do that. Shameless self-promotion here. Washington may be the most literate city in the United States, but DC has a serious and lasting challenge to universal literacy. Tomorrow on the Education Town Hall, I should say Thursday, July the 27th at 11 a.m. on the Education Town Hall. It's time to get serious about literacy and its challenges. This program will be featuring Dr. John Miller, the author of studies rating most literate cities and nations, and literacy expert Dr. Jesse Turner. Again, this is July the 27th at 11 a.m. on the Education Town Hall. DC has been designated the most literate city in the United States. How do we rectify the most literate city in the United States, but the East of the River has 0 bookstores?
Wow.
East of the River has twice the national average in illiteracy. So if it's the most literate, because this is why I try to convict American democracy. Because if American democracy as a system was actually that example that needs to be exported around the world, then they would at least have gotten 68 square miles right. That 68 square miles here in this nation's capital would be the shining city on the hill. It would be the example for the world. It would have the best hospitals, the best schools, the best roads, the best everything in at least one spot they can point to that's working. And if we read, apparently that is not the case. So, not a closing comment, but a reflecting comment before we open it up to questions. If you have a comment, if you don't, we'll move on.
Jeez, how do I follow that? No, I completely agree. It's the biggest injustice that we
Absolutely.
are facing. For youth not to be able to just walk a few steps, find a book, and a book that's affordable. You know, a lot of the books out there are just really, really expensive, and your budget has to be expensive so that you can afford it. And so for us particularly, it's important that we have affordable books. Our books range from $4, $5, $6, and they're excellent quality. And so that's what you need. I think the community needs that, be able to walk, read it, and share, and share that with their friends and say, hey, what do you think about this? These are the ideas that I came out of reading this. How about you? And have a conversation. I think that's the most important thing, and what's missing with the youth is that it's okay to have a conversation about a book and ideas and what you plan to do with those ideas.
What we're trying to do at Upchurch Street Books is we're trying to be part of a continuum, part of a group of institutions and businesses, libraries, schools, bookstores. I think that it's not enough to say that one person can provide what's needed here. I think it's really important for us to recognize that we need hundreds and thousands of people to be a part of the solution, and that's in a small way what Upchurch Street Books is trying to be a part of.
This is pretty much my life's work. You need affordable books, you need access, you need the books that are affordable to be high quality as well. So it's a fight on every level, and you guys are 100% right. This is the battle that we're fighting. a bookstore is a community. Now, the narrative that you spoke of at the very beginning of the bookstore is dying is a narrative that the white media perpetrates all the time. And that is simply not true. The small independent bookstore is what has taken over and what is the thing that is thriving now. I used to work for Barnes & Noble back in the day, and they're not a bad chain. You know, they're better than Borders was, and Borders went under, but they were also the only thing that was on the west side of Albuquerque. And so that was the bookstore that I was working at. But I said like 5 years ago, it's the time of the big box bookstore is done. And it was as soon as I saw Barnes & Noble like fire almost their entire buying team and put everything in the Nook, even though Amazon had basically come out with the Kindle and put the, you know, they got the name. When people think e-reader, they think Kindle. Like game's up right there. But that was basically, you know, Amazon pushed the independent bookstore industry to be better and to be a little more accessible and to not just be grumpy booksellers and bookstores with no business plans who didn't, you know, connect with the community, which not all of them were, but it also didn't go nearly far enough. You know, the fact that what I'm trying to do is, you know, bookstores, especially in the city, it's a very expensive proposition. We are a low margin business. We don't make a lot of profit. So for us, it's important, and I think especially as people of color, to think about all the different experimental ways that we can create a bookstore within hybrid options. And so so that we can get to as many people as possible. So whether it's, you know, teaming with a nonprofit and a cafe and trying to figure out how to make that rent, it doesn't matter. What matters is that wherever you are, you've connected with your community and you have honestly reached out to everybody, that you have talked to people, that you have asked them what kind of store they want. You have invited them in as much as possible. That is what is important. That's the thing that we need to do. That's how we work together. That's how we, you know, make a bookstore really grow wherever it is. And it is a crime that Anacostia doesn't have a bookstore like that. And it's really important.
Criminal.
It is, yeah, I like, to me, like, I'm just like, that is just, I can't even. But that this is happening, that you're building what you're building, that you've been doing what you've been doing, that, you know, what we've all been doing, that's what's gonna make it better. And so we just need to keep talking about it and we need to keep working together. That is the most important thing. As people within the bookstore industry, in our own communities, we need to work together, but we also, we're not a competitive industry like other industries. Indie bookstores are very friendly with each other. And then we also need to be honestly connecting and communicating with everybody in our community.
Yeah, you know, what you said is, the question you asked, I think, is a very, very complex question. There's a lot of different elements, different perspectives and ways you can go at attacking that. Because to say on one hand that DC is the most literate city in the nation, but on the other hand, east of the river, illiteracy is double the rate.
60%.
I mean, if you just take a step back and really think about what that means, it means that on the other side, the rate is very high. And Brother Muhammad said it, you know, there's a certain type of system, there's a model that's put in place, and it's working as it's supposed to work.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And, you know, I know specifically, you know, for our business plan, as we were doing research to open up our physical bookstore, I noticed that in the area, one of the areas that we're looking to open a store, I was studying, there's major book chains down there, huge retail space allotted, large inventory. However, although 20% of the population are African American, of the population, their average household income is north of $70,000, and almost half of the population, over 25, is college educated. It's still a 75-to-1 ratio in terms of books on the shelves, meaning that for every 75 books, general interest books, meaning books not about African Americans or dealing with the African diaspora, there's 75 books and only one of them deals with me and my culture, my heritage. Yet we're a major population there, major income, so we have disposable income, and it's an educated class, but yet the retailers there still found it so fit not to market, not to provide literature, books that would engage us. Again, it's the system. I mean, it is what it is. You can't complain, you just change it. You do what you can to change it. And that's really what everyone here is about doing. You know, so we focus on one specific niche. That's our focus. But there's other niches that has to be focused on as well. So we can have that cross conversation so that we can all learn from each other. We can all ultimately get to the point where we don't have this issue. There shouldn't be a need for an African-American bookstore. The fact that there's a need says there's a problem. The point is to get to a point, the idea is to get to a point one day where that's not needed. You walk into a bookstore and everyone is reflected and everyone can feel safe, can feel comfortable in being there and having their heritage, whatever it is, be reflected and they can experience it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, first of all, I agree that there is this kind of media narrative of bookstores kind of exploding all over DC. And if you're kind of reading the paper, you might think, oh, you know, how can all these bookstores suddenly pop into existence and how is that sustainable? But really, what you're seeing is, it's not even the beginnings of a correction, but there should be far, far more bookstores than there are in DC right now. I mean, over the past 3 or 4 decades, you know, with big box stores coming in and then closing, neighborhoods have been hollowed out, and really every single neighborhood, as you know, Upshur said, yeah, every single neighborhood should have a bookstore. And I think it's appalling that you have this sort of celebratory narrative when you have this huge section of the city which just hasn't had that kind of focus on it. And you know, for us, I mean, I think for Politics and Prose, I agree that it has to come from a community. So it's, you know, for Politics and Prose, we couldn't come here and say, all right, we're going to open a bookstore. But what we can do is recognize what you're doing here and recognize that this is a neighborhood that is chronically underserved. That's been underserved for decades and decades and decades. And so what we can do is we can support that. You know, we want to help you raise funds, but we want the community to have absolute ownership.
Go right ahead with the special announcement we have for you.
I do have an announcement. So on September the 30th, we're going to have a Day of Politics and Prose where we're going to donate 20% of all proceeds from the store to support this bookstore and help it get it. So we're going to go for a busy day. We're going to make it. That's not public yet. You're actually the first people I've told in the room. So
world premiere.
Expect a big announcement.
All right, September 30th.
We're excited about that.
All right.
Yes, sir. That's very much appreciated, sir. And I'm definitely gonna make a big donation myself. Wow, it's just so much, man. But to you young black people, must reads David Walker's Appeal. Gotta read that book.
You gotta tell them who David Walker is.
David Walker was a brother that put out a book in about 1825.
It was, yeah.
Something like that. There would be no Nat Turner without David Walker's Appeal. When he wrote that pamphlet, David Walker's pamphlet, in 1825, they put out a $10,000 bounty on this man's head, dead or alive. Think about it, 1825. He was in Boston. His mother was a free woman. It was slavery then, sister. His father was a slave. And the white man's law at that time was, if you're born from a woman who's free, then you're free. That which comes out of her womb is free. But if the woman is a slave, that makes the child a slave. So when they moved to Boston and he wrote that pamphlet, it's about 81 pages, but it's a must read. You'll see the mind of this wicked beast that we live under and why he wants to kill you at every turn. It's not a game, sister. It's not a game, brothers and sisters. I don't know how old you people are, but does anybody remember the Dope Busters? You said 1989. Public Enemy came and performed over Mayfair Mansions in Paradise when it was like New Jack City. Google it, y'all. I'm one of the Dope Busters. We went over there and did in one day. I'm not going to even say FOI, I'm going to say black men. Strong, organized black men. We stopped the drugs in that community, and one day, what the police was trying to do for 12 years, you could get drugs over there 24/7. Black women and grandmothers were scared to go across the street and buy a loaf of bread at the store across the street. It was New Jack City. But 104 black men went over there, and we had to spank some asses, excuse my language, because you know the Negro is hard-headed. But our captain said, once our captain said, get him off the property, you get off that property. You can't beat 30, 40 black men, organized. So I'm saying to y'all, reading, as the brother said, is the key. But you got to read certain books to wake you up. Without Sanctuary. Have any of you all read Without Sanctuary? Any of you book readers or book owners? You never read that book? Must read. Must read. And I guarantee you none of you all could read it without crying. I read it and cried like a baby. Like a baby. I'm like, wow. Who would do this to human beings? Who would do this to human beings, man? Makes me cry just thinking about it. Without Sanctuary, man. Ralph Ginsburg book that Malcolm carried. I heard him say Malcolm. Everybody, a couple of people said Malcolm. But he carried 3 books in the Sachet case. 3 books, brother. Ralph Ginsburg book, 100 Years of Lynching. J.A. Rogers, Superman the Man. And the Learned Elders of Zion, the Prodigals. Those 3 books he spanked with an 8th grade education. This brother only went to the 8th grade. He spanked that lawyer at Harvard like a little baby.
Couple of outlays.
He spanked the lawyer at Yale like a child with the knowledge given to him from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. People don't even like to mention that name. And you got to read the speech by Frederick Douglass when he did that. I forget the year it was, on the 4th of July, because you have no business celebrating no damn 4th of July. No business. That was one American white man trying to get his freedom from a French white man, right? Or the British white man. But he kept us as slaves when he got his freedom in 1776. So you should not burn no fireworks, wave no damn flags on the 4th of July. That's what you should start calling it. It's the biggest lie ever sold to you. They miseducate you from day one when you come into the schools of America. You're totally miseducation. The miseducation of the Negro. You got to read that one too. He started off as a week, Carter G. Woodson. He said, we're so dumb we need 2 weeks. He said, we're so dumb we need a month. They have dumbed us down in this damn country, man. And we're playing games with these people. We need separation. We need our own. That's the only way we're going to survive as black people in this country, man. Otherwise, you continue to watch your babies and your cousins and your nephews and your nieces murdered by these dogs and sanctioned by the State Department and this bastard we got on Capitol Hill right now, man. This is the president at the White House. I'm very emotional because I'm talking to black people, my children, man. I have 6 children, 5 grandchildren. I have a daughter that's a lawyer up in New York. She did the same thing Paul Robeson did. Undergrad at Rutgers, graduated from Columbia. She said, Daddy, this whole system needs to be abolished. It's wicked to the core. It's rotten. What they do to black males and black girls now. You were going to school you're going to jail, to prison, black women. I was just reading an article the other day. At a higher rate than any other, and you're catching up with the black males. And if you do the statistics, I got to do this, brother. I got to do this. The black male makes up 5.8% of America, man. So you got 92.4% of 94.2% other people. Black women, white women, Hispanic. But we make up 75% of the prison system. Something wrong, man, with those numbers, brother. These are bad numbers. That means when you have a baby, it's inclined.
As you say, the system is doing what it says.
Yes, but that's to say though, brother.
We got to open the floor.
Okay, brother. When a black woman have a baby, that male baby is inclined, when he come out the womb, to be a criminal. Good God Almighty.
All right, give him some love. You gotta give
That's true, man.
keep going. That's why you was invited here.
Yes, sir.
Make me look less radical. I'm
It ain't radical, it's truth,
I'm the moderate today.
Truth, black man.
All right. So we turn it over to our questions. And I thank my panel for joining us here today. Give our panel a round of applause, please. I got this book from Sankofa Bookstore on Georgia Avenue. This is called Riffing on a Blue Night. Sometimes I wonder. This is the latest book by Dr. Ackland Lynch. Dr. Ackland Lynch
Good man. Good man.
Is a towering figure in our
man.
community.
Wow.
Retired professor at Howard University and a couple other schools he taught it as well. He has this to say: the master's tool will never dismantle the master's house. Those of us who stand outside the circle of this society's definition of us, those of us who have been forged in the crucible of difference, those of us who are poor, who are black or brown, know that survival is not an academic skill. It is learning how to stand alone, unpopular, and sometimes reviled, and know how to make common sense with those others identified outside the structures, in order to define and seek a world in which we all can flourish. It is learning how to take our differences and make them strengths. For those master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. They may allow us temporarily to beat him at his own game, but they will never enable us to bring about genuine change, and this fact is threatening to those who still define the master's house as their only source of support.
Wow.
In my understanding, and the reason why we have some of the issues we have in our community, because there's a group of people who are training their young people for leadership. There's another group of people who are training their children for jobs. And the ones who are training their children for jobs primarily are serving a system that doesn't care about them, instead of preparing them for leadership in a world that belongs to them. All right? So as I'm looking over to cameraman number 2, are we set and ready to rock here for our Q&A with the young people? Yep. Waiting for 2 thumbs up. Siskel and Ebert. Is that the name? Siskel and Ebert? Urban and Siskel? Something like that? Help me out, Paul. We good to go now? All right. Sorry, we're working with New York's training program here. We're at Grill with the Summer Youth Employment program. Marion Barry, Summer Youth Employment program. I'm a product of the Summer Youth Employment program. My first job was a Summer Youth Employment program. I worked in a law firm, paid as a mailroom, working as a paralegal. Nobody told me, but at least I left it with some skills.
Yes, sir. Yes,
left
sir.
it with some skills. Every neighborhood deserves a bookstore, Paul. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. You gave us our mantra and our motto, and I'm so glad. All right, we good to go?
Yes, sir.
All right, audio good to go? Where's my audio man? All right, first question for. Raise your hand. First question for us. You're going to speak up and state your name and introduce yourself and give us your question, please. And if you like that question answered by a specific person, let me know. Otherwise, I'll take it whoever wants to take that question. All right, we ready? First question.
I just wanted to ask, what's the most interesting thing about books? Is it the story that it tells, or what's the most interesting part?
What's the most interesting part about books? Anybody want to take that?
I think it's all of the above. I think depending on what I'm reading, I'm a comic book nerd. I love sci-fi. I love fiction stories with people shooting lasers and all over the place. And sometimes it's just the enjoyment of being able to take a step back and just relax in that book, to have, to immerse yourself into another mythology that is just relaxing for me. So sometimes it's, just enjoying the entertainment of the book, right? You got a movie playing in your head. I know a lot of book readers say that, but it's really just that relaxation quality of reading a story. Other times, it's the information that I receive. I just finished book by Dr. John Henry Clark called Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, I've been struggling with this ability to define heritage and what it means and how we go about doing the work as a bookstore. And reading that book, it just crystallized everything for me. I mean, I wish I had read that book 5 years ago. It would have saved me a lot of brain power trying to figure out how to really verbalize our mission and, you know, our purpose. But reading that one book, it just, like, the answer was there all along. And someone else had it. And it's just being able to go to an elder, essentially, ask them the question by opening that book, and the light came on.
My name is Princess. I'm 16 years old. I'm going to the 12th grade. My question is for you. And while you were outside, what genres of books did you sell the most?
That's a very good question, sister. You know, when I first started selling the books, after I left the nail shop, I only sold black books for about 4 or 5 years. And basically, I have to say this, wow, it's an indictment on me. I sold ignorance because I sold the fiction. Oh My Tyree, Fly Girl, True to the Game, Terry Woods, Shannon Holmes, Be More Careful. What was the #1 book by Sister Soldier? The Coldest One Ever. And it made me tens of thousands of dollars, a lot of money. Because my daughter, who's a lawyer, as I keep saying, her girlfriend, they worked for me 3 years in high school. I had three people working on the corners downtown. And we sold Michael Bazin and those books like crack. I never read them. The only fictional book I ever read in my life was The Coldest One Ever. And I read it in one night, 5 o'clock in the morning. And at the end of it, I said, damn, this sister whole family is destroyed and she getting ready to start this madness all over again. You remember that book? Did you read it? Did any of y'all read those books? But The Coldest One Ever. Yes, ma'am, by Sister Soldier. But I changed over. I would have 7 tables of books like this brother just mentioned. That came before Columbus, Ivan Van Sertima. And these books you young people will never hear of. They'll never give you all these books. John Henry Clark, Dr. Ben Yakahanan, Amos Wilson, J.A. Rogers. These are brothers who did magnificent research on us and found that you are the first. You are the mothers and the fathers of everybody on this planet. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. That's Mendelian's law. If you go through biology and become a doctor, you have to study what? Mendelian's law. Light is recessive, dark is dominant. You can get the light out of the dominant, but you can't get the dominant out of the light. Everybody on the planet comes from black people. We are the mother and father of everybody. Biologically and genetically, it's a biological and genetic fact. And I dare you to try to disprove it. And how come are we the most ignorant, sister? Because books change the whole paradigm of your life. That's why they give you garbage for 12 years. Straight garbage.
Next question.
It's a question for everyone out there. My name is Jeffrey Jenkins. I'm 16. I'll be going to the 12th grade. Have any of you ever written your own books? And if you have, what kinds of books have you written?
Has anyone written their own book here?
Well, I'm a poet, and I have written my book. I've written chapbooks. And I have my thesis, and that's my book. But it's hard. It's hard being a poet, especially a poet of color. It's hard to get your work out there, but you have to do it. You have to do it. And we especially, people of color, we come from a culture of storytelling. And so as poetry tends to be something that we kind of naturally attract ourselves to. And I also come from the Albuquerque Poetry Slam community. And so that's a big deal to me too. So I think it's not just the matter of books and reading. It's also being around, like going to things like poetry slams, going to poetry readings, listening to the stories that people tell are just as powerful as reading them, and reading as much as you can, but also questioning everything that you can. And I will make a plug for fiction, good, serious fiction, because that also teaches you how to walk in somebody else's shoes. It teaches you empathy. It teaches you how to think, for yourself and think about somebody else. And that actually, science has proven that that actually helps preserve your brain, and you can live a little longer. But yeah, so I'm a poet, and my book is kind of silly, but yes, I have written a book.
All right, next question.
Hi, I'm Avea Weaver. I go to Dunbar Senior High School, and I'll be in the 12th this year, and I'm 16. Do you enjoy what you're doing in order to open up a bookstore, and why?
Yes, this is my passion. Like, I can honestly say, without a doubt, I would do this for the rest of my life. And one of my mentors, soon after I graduated college, he asked me the question, if you had to wake up every day, go to work, get on 95, drive there, drive home, but never got paid for it, what would you do? And this is that thing for me. So we've been building Mahogany Books for 7 to 8 years. For the vast majority of the time, I was doing it while I was working full time. So it's that important to me, not just because of, because of what books mean to me, has meant to me for my life, but also what it means for the community. And I have a 12-year-old daughter, and for her to be able to see her mother and her father, because you made a great point about when you go to school, you're really taught to be honest, an asset on someone's ledger. That's what you are as a employee. In some instances, you're really a liability, but you're a way for them to make money. For my daughter to be able to see her parents go to work full time, but then come home and run a business that's been able to send her on vacations. We've been numerous places, to give her opportunities to do great things that she wants to do, and to instill in her the entrepreneurial spirit as well, where she sells jewelry, she sells scarves that she makes, and be able to make a little bit of money to do little things that she wants to do. That is, at the end of the day, the greatest joy about this is that not only do I get to impact, again, my community, but what it means for my daughter to see someone in her life be an entrepreneur and own their own business, so they don't have to go to anybody else. When I want to go to the movies in the morning time, I don't have to ask the boss. I ask me, do I want to go to the movies? I want to go to the movies. That's what I do.
Next question.
Hi, I'm Gianna Duarte. I'm 18. I go to Virginia State. What advice would you give We Got Radio for our future bookstore owners?
Sister, this bookstore is going to be, look, I'm from here, right up that hill. I sold drugs up that hill, Mellon Street. I got a cousin that's been locked up for 40 years. Since 1977, this man been in jail. And I've been riding with him since 77. He got locked up when I was in the 10th grade. He's been in the system. He's 61 years old. He got 4 children and 18 grandchildren he's never seen. There is no Valley Green. There is no The Circle and Parkland. That's done. They're taking over this city. But just to say that, sister, I'm going to help this brother here. I'm going to help this brother. This is going to be a bona fide black bookstore in Southeast. I had a $10,000 account in Baltimore open to come and buy $10,000 worth of books with no money anytime I wanted to at African World Books. And I'm going to call Brother Nati and see if we can open that again so we can get this thing here pumping. This will be a bookstore, sister. By the grace of Almighty God Allah, this will be a bookstore for black people. With this brother here, I'm going to help my brother. I love him.
Donations can be made at weacradio.com. We love books. We have to renovate this basement, and quickly, because that's not a safe space for those books. Let's get one more question. I'm going to. We're running out of time here. Thank you guys for your indulgence. We really appreciate you here. Next question.
I'm 15 years old, and my question is, if your bookstore ever failed, what would you do to prevent it?
Ooh, that's a terrible question. But it's an honest one. It's an honest one. Hold on before we go to that one. Hold on for the next question. We're not going to forget that one. Don't worry about that one. Well, next question.
Hi, my name is Imani Brown. I go to Virginia State University. I'm 20 years old, and I'm just going to shamelessly plug myself. I just published a poetry book.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to know, why did you choose the area that you currently have your bookstore in, and why not bring it to the east of the river?
Okay, now that's a better question. I'm going to answer, if you can answer both of those. Everyone answer both of those. If the first one is, what would you do if your business fail, and why did you choose the area that you're in with your business? Obviously, we chose the area because we have the space, and because it's our basement. Our business model is quite different than everyone else's because the rent is currently been paid for 6 years running now. So it doesn't have to make money. It only has to make sense. So that's why we're here where we are. And then we'll use this opportunity to wrap everything up because I think it's a great way to end it.
So we're in Parkview, and we live in Brightwood Park. That's a little bit north of Petworth. It just kind of made sense to be close to home in terms of where we would open up the bookstore, and it kind of found us in a lot of ways. We did research and found this great ideal spot in the little strip of other businesses that were up and coming, and so it kind of found us in a lot of ways. And I think your question is really good in terms of what would we do if we see it, not succeeding? And I think that's the realest question, to be honest. This is hard work. It's a lot of sacrifice that you put in. It's your blood, sweat, and tears that you put into it's our baby in a lot of ways, this bookstore. And so you just fight hard, and you remember what your mission and your vision is daily, and ask for support from the community and love, and you'd be surprised how you can find that.
We are in Petworth, and we chose Petworth because we have other businesses there, and I'm connected to that neighborhood, and I know that there was a demand for a bookstore. And I would just reiterate that running and owning a bookstore is a challenge, and you're kind of constantly facing failure, and so you just have to keep working as hard as you can.
So I'm actually looking for a home. I'm a mobile pop-up, and I do partnerships with different organizations and businesses. Right now, I'm at Lamano Coffee Bar with my friend Javier over in Tacoma. I was incubated at Artomatic, which was in Crystal City this year, and then I'm kind of popping all over the DMV. For me, I feel because I'm not from the DMV, I don't want to just enter a neighborhood or community that doesn't know me. I think that that's like appropriation on one level, and I also want to go somewhere where somebody, like a community, really wants to join the district. They I've been there enough times. I've talked to people. We've done events. We've done pop-ups. We've worked with different people, and they're like, okay, we do want you. So that's kind of my hope. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. And in terms of the bookstore failing, I mean, that is a real thing for any business owner. You have to face the fear of failure. And once you face the fear of failure, you just decide you're going to do it anyway, because it was really frightening leaving my very stable job, but it wasn't what I wanted it to be, and it wasn't it wasn't the community that I needed to serve or wanted to serve, and I kind of just had to come to terms with, well, what if I go and I do this and I fail? And then I had to say, I don't care. If I don't do it, then I'll regret it the rest of my life. And I don't have any money. I have a lot of student loan debt. I can't walk into a bank and get a loan. So I have to be really creative, and I have to be really smart about how I'm going to do this. And that's how any business owner should be. But definitely anybody who's opening a bookstore, you need to just have the plan. You need to, work with whoever you can work with. Small Business Administration does workshops. You need to have your business plan. You need to do everything you can to build a good business plan from the ground up, but then also have that plan for, well, what if it still doesn't work? Derek does this very well, so I'm going to hand it on over to him.
Okay, so your question is a very solution-oriented question. I mean, and that's, again, if you're going to be in business, really in any career you choose, you're going to run into situations where you're faced with the possibility of failure. You're faced with obstacles. And the first question you have to ask yourself is, how do I prevent that? And you start planning for it. There's those people who don't realize that they're the ones that end up failing. So with that in mind, we have a business plan full of solutions that would hopefully keep us from running into that situation. And one of those things that we really focus on is providing, making a connection between readers and writers, right? So I understand, we understand that readers, we're kind of like we're a quirky breed. Like we love talking to each other. We're usually by ourselves, but when you start talking to another person who's read the same book, you kind of light up and you love to get that person's insight into what you thought about that book, what you took away from it, and creating that type of connection when readers can then talk to the people that's created that that content. People like that. So that's just one of the tactics that we're putting in place to do that. The second question in terms of why we chose to, well, we're online, right? So at this moment, we're an online bookstore. And we chose that model for a number of reasons. Number one, ease of entry into the marketplace, right? The second thing is my wife is from Tulsa, Oklahoma. She's a very, she's very proud of her home. She's a country girl, and she loves Tulsa, Oklahoma. But one of the things that we talked about when we would go back to visit her parents is that Tulsa, Oklahoma is the home of, right, I'm about to say that, I want to say Black Wall Street, right? There's a large community of African Americans in this state, Republican state for a number of years, right? But there's no access to books, none for them, right? So we have the ability as a online bookstore, we sell books to people in Alabama, West Virginia, Minnesota, a lot of communities that don't have access to these type of books. And the online marketplace allows us the ability to reach these people. We send them books, we ship books for free, we can ship books to penitentiaries, we have the ability to ship books overseas to United States Air Force bases. So for us, because online was an easier entry into the marketplace, and that it also allowed us the ability to reach a more national audience, we were able to serve, we felt we were able to serve more people that way. So, and we're doing it backwards. So now we're going from the online model to now we're looking at opening up places within the DMV in different communities.
So, you know, Politics and Prose does a lot. We have a lot of different departments, a lot of different staff doing a lot of different things. And, you know, for us, I think it's very important to kind of keep a real, with all the things that go on, to keep a real focus at, you know, the core experience that customers have when they come into the store. And I think for us, I mean, if something is going wrong or if something isn't going right, I can guarantee that the very first people who are going to know that are the booksellers who are interacting with customers every day. And so for us, the big thing and the big challenge is to make sure that we are always keeping that line of communication open. We always know what our customers are thinking, what people through the company, you know, from the owners right through to, you know, people sort of working part-time in events or working on the floor, they all feel like they're part of the same mission, sort of keeping it going. And the other thing is, as in terms of not being complacent and sort of where we go, you know, we are opening a new bookstore in Northeast. We're coming to Union Market. And I think for that space, the most important thing to do before we open there is, rather than try and tell people what they want in a bookstore, is first to ask them. So, you know, we're spending the next sort of 3 or 4 months really kind of working in this community, sort of talking to people from all over, you know, not just Union Market and the vendors and themselves, but the neighboring community. What do they want to see in a bookstore? What sort of programming do they need? How can we best serve them? And only then can we actually open something which will do justice to that neighborhood.
I'm not in the book business anymore, but I love reading. I read. Well, 5 years ago, the Kindles and everything were merging in, and my mother got sick. I have 3 sisters, 2 younger and 1 older, and they had a meeting to put my mother in a home. And I told them, you would never put my mother in a home over my dead body. So I stopped selling books. I hadn't worked for white people in 21 years. with 5 children in private school. And another struggle with an ex-wife that I was with for 28 years, to whom all my children are by, all 6 of them. But I took care of Dolly. Wow. For 2 years and 4 months. She died 5 years. It'll be 5 years in May, she died. But if God blessed me to get her back today, I wouldn't be baking right now. It wouldn't be money. Dolly worked at the printing office for 36 years. You gonna put her in a damn home? We never did that down south. Grandma be on the porch at 100 years old with that Bible. We never put out people in homes. We're imitators of this Caucasians. We're little white people right now. And I just want to say this. I have a youngster that just got locked up to work for me, brother. This is, wow. I have 3 youngsters that work for me. They locked him up Thursday. He's 16 years old, Damu. I shouldn't have said his name, young brother. But anyway, they robbed somebody, and he put it on film. He's filming. He wasn't part of it. He didn't beat him up real bad. He took the guy's phone. That's where he put it at. What would you say, brother? Facebook. He put his crime on Facebook. This is the ignorance that we're dealing with, Master Damu. The police came and locked you up at your mother's house. Why would you put a crime on Facebook, brother? And he's locked up right now. He called me yesterday. Oh, do I stay on my job? I said, yes, sir. But you got to come to FOI with me, brother. I hate ignorance. Ignorance is why we're rude as a people. And I need an employee. One of you sisters want to work? Today, you can come and work with me today. I pay you $10 an hour.
What did you bring everybody today?
I bought everybody a pie. I mean, my mind wanted, excuse me, I'm sorry. But everybody in here gets a free pie. You can taste my pie. We got them in 86 stores. And if one of y'all want to come and work, you can come to work today. I need another person. Right now, when I leave here, they'll be here at 4 o'clock. I got to leave and meet them at the bakery.
All right, let's wrap it up on the pie quote.
Thank you very much. I love this. That was a self-indulging plug, black man. Yes, sir.
And I just want to thank everybody for coming out. One more time before we go take a group pic.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank everybody for coming out. Give the panel one more round of applause. And just so we know, we was joined here today by Karen Coca, Walls of Books. Give them this, Walls of Books a round of applause. Carvelis Muhammad, 21 years book vending in the streets of Washington, D.C. now is granting us with his delicious pies. Carvelis Muhammad. John Purvis from Politics and Prose. Give him a round of applause. Politics and Prose. New location would be Union Market, also known as Farmers Market for the old school people. And September 30th, they're doing a great, generous fundraiser for us, so please make sure that you come out and support us and them on September 30th. Derek Young, Mahogany Books. Online. And I really enjoyed your stories today. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for opening up. Angela Maria Springs from Duente Books. Duende District Books. And the man who gave me my motto, every neighborhood deserves a bookstore, Upshur Street Bookstore founder and owner Paul Rupert. This has been a production of We Act Radio, the future home of Shawnee's Milton Community Bookstore. We love books. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, sir.